Okay, so last time I just showed a base equipment test. This time I'm going to actually start building some of the stuff out. So let's take a look in the back here if I can get past this. And you can see the two panels are stacked on top of each other there. Those are going long ways across the roof. Believe it or not, they fit. They are not wider than the vehicle body. They're going to go up there with this stuff. This is 1/4 inch angle aluminum. This is a remnant. It is not as long as the 52-inch rails that are going to hold this first panel to the luggage rack on the back. In the future, I'll discuss getting the second panel onto the front and angling it and all that kind of stuff. But we're not there yet. So you can see I've made some marks in here. After doing some math, I discovered that this is like properly 21 millimeters. I mean, whatever, doesn't matter. From the centimeters from the end of this part to get that in there. So these holes are looking really good. It is something of an approximation, and it is also not. It's always how it goes with building this kind of stuff. So I'm gonna see about getting some drill bits together and get started on that. So that was easy. I got one of the first bolts in here, got both holes drilled for the first rail. The first rail is definitely the most important because once you do the first one and they're all the same size, you can use the first one as a guide for all the other parts. So that's pretty well perfect. These things are slotted. I knew I'd have a little bit of play. This hardware is number 8 hardware. It's not extremely cheap unless you find a bunch of it on sale like I did. Each one of these bolts is about $1. Each one of these pieces on it is like 50 cents. But there's just no replacement for number 8 when you're doing something like a van build and you're gonna deal with wind and the outdoors. You really got to overbuild this stuff. You know, 1/4 inch aluminum is probably even overkill for this. I could probably go a little thinner, but you've got to overkill it. I had panels up here before that, like, the rails show obvious signs of warping from the wind. Now, this build is going to be a little different than that build was because this build will have a panel used in the front as a shroud. So the wind should be, in the long term, less of a concern. I'm going to go ahead and get this in here, and we'll check it out. Oh, there we go. How nice of it. Thank you. Nice little bolt. Yeah. These are for, longer ones are for the actual roof, so let me give you a kind of a preview on how this is going to work. So you want to be able to lower and raise this panel, right? This is going to be sitting across the van like this. And so these two rails attach to two others that are of the proper length. And these rails bolt to the van. These rails stay on here. So what you'll end up with is on the end part here, you'll drill a hole in the corner of this, and that's where the panels will attach to the actual part that is bolted to the roof rack. So this part, again of the right length, will end up here like this, and the panels will connect into here with a bolt, and then there's bolts on both ends, 4 bolts, one in each corner, And so what you can do is take a set of bolts out, and then you just push the panels up to get your angle. And then, you know, there are a variety of solutions I've used, but you just put something under it to prop it, or put proper 45-degree, proper length metal in it to make a 45-degree angle, and bolt it again, like if you're in a high wind area or whatever. Oh, I guess this is one of the right ones. So this whole assembly then bolts into the roof rack. I'm gonna have to drill one new set of holes in here, which I don't like doing, but I'm gonna plug the old ones or put a bolt in them, or just something, you know. But this roof rack is like bolted to the frame. There's like super thick all thread and stuff, or bolts or whatever in here. So this roof rack ain't going anywhere. You can see me, I don't know if you can see it, but I can shake the vehicle using the roof rack. So, you know, if at all possible, I would highly recommend using your built-in rack or whatever it is you've got. So I'm gonna move on this, but that's basically this part of the project. Okay, so I got the other one drilled. Of course, when you use it as a guide, you got to make sure you put your half-inch or whatever back on there. These are both inset. I guess it's hard for you to see that, but they're inset the right distance. Yay! So I totally did not completely screw up. $60 worth of aluminum rails on the very first step. I want to get 2 more bolts in either of these at some point. But now you can see kind of how the rack hinges together, right? So that's how you raise and lower it, and this is the piece that attaches to the van rack itself. So ultimately there'll be 4 number 8 hardware bolts with compression or fittings, and 2 1/4-inch aluminum angle rails holding these things on there, so they're not going anywhere. As to how the van drives in heavy wind, that's another story. I wanted to talk more about like how you actually go about planning and implementing something like this. So when I was first doing this one, I thought, you know, why don't I just build like a tiny little junky analog, right? Like none of this is to size, has a few numbers written on here, but the point is that this shows where the bolts go, where the L aluminum goes, and how this whole thing ultimately works. So like in this example, this piece right here is this rail that's attached to the panel, right? And then there's another, this is another L piece that's going to be bolted to the roof rack like I talked about before. So that was really helpful in just finalizing the way it's going to work. And in the front, the idea is that there'll be just the regular brackets, you know, for this panel. But there'll also be another one that is attached to the front panel. And obviously when that sits with no front support on it, because this will be, you know, the edge of the roof basically here, it will just I'll be able to get like some spacers or something under the edge of this is the idea, or some way, and get this to tilt downward some. And then I'm probably going to have to bolt it to the roof, like up there, which means I have to get the cojones together to punch a titanium drill bit through the roof of my minivan and be really super sure about what I'm doing if I'm going to do that. So the current project really is just get the back panel on here and see how that turns out. I wanted to show actually kind of doing a little bit of this. So you can notice here that these rails on the panel have, man, these are strong. I guess this is steel. You know, this is just tough as nails, and it's really not. So I'm not sure what happened there, but I lost the cut. But yeah, these rails are really tough. The extra hole for this is just simply measured end to end, right at like 6 centimeters. And you know, you just make another mark, sanity check it. You know, you can see it's looks fine there. So simple, right? This whole mess is going to be gone that is the rear heater core and air conditioning condenser. And behind it, in the wall, are the motors that control the dove windows and the motors that control the vent mechanism for the heater core. So I got the single AC lines and the single the heater caps for the heater core in the front, where the lines come off the motor to go to the back. So that should all be eliminated sometime this week. I'm having a shop do that, and then we'll recharge it to single system. So we're basically just eliminating the rear heating and cooling system. You might think, why would you want to do that? But it's really a lot of extra weight. It really is. And it's a big motor that I don't want or really need. I may use for something else. Who knows? That whole assembly may end up repurposed. But what I don't need is the air conditioning from the engine cooling the rear compartment. That's really just a driver comfort thing in this build. So I'm just not going to do it. I'm not going to have it anymore. There are no seats back here. By the way, if you have one of these vans, this roof is just a board. There's no special stuff up here. There's no piping, none of that. There's just a vent that comes off of there, goes straight up into that part there, and it just blows cold or hot air right through the roof. So don't be afraid of what might be up there if you need to get up there. And you can use the connection that's there to use your roof vents, right, for almost anything that you'd want to do it. So, that's something I'm also considering, is hooking the mini AC just into the van roof. Keep the roof body cool. Not that it'll matter because it'll be shaded by the panels, but, it might help overall with the vehicle. You can see the water tank is up there, metal there. Both solar panels for the build are back here. There's the battery and the well that you saw in the very first video. This is the long single AC line. Somewhere in here is the other one. That's just trash. So until next time.